Hi, Jason here from Sightsolutions. In this video, in our final video of our Reflow series, we will be taking a look at some more navigation, some alarms, and some histories. So without further ado, let's get into our project and get started. Okay, so you know the drill. Web browser, Reflow config mode, and then we're ready to go. So we're going to look at navigation to start with. Now, before we go into navigation, things to consider in this particular example, we're running our station in a default profile within Reflow. So everything is accessible from a default profile and everything is open. Now, you can set up your various profiles that can lock down certain elements that you don't want access to certain users. But for this video, we're just going to work from the default profile and go from there. If you do feel that you would like us to cover the user profiles, let us know in the comments below in the video and we can look to do another video for that. So before we build out our navigation, we need to build some pages, which are our assets to build out this navigation. To get to these items, so we want to go to pages. Now in the previous video, we looked at bringing a dashboard page, floor 1, okay? And I did a copy of that to show how I built the widgets up for that. Now, normally, you would do your dashboard page or any page for that matter, make sure that that's all correct and then duplicate out and then maybe make the changes on that to suit that particular page. Once you finish that one and duplicate. So basically duplicate, complete one and then duplicate. So I'm not one for really getting in the habit of just en masse copy and pasting all my pages and then going back and doing them, because if you do have any errors, you're going to then carry those errors through en masse. So I'm going to break my rule here just for the sake of trying to demonstrate the navigation. I'm going to duplicate my dashboard page for every floor between my two buildings. So for starters, let's look at dashboard page here. Now remember, the name of the page in this box here is the name of the page that's presented in your Reflow config mode, so you can identify your assets. So those are your asset names. Let's just click OK on that. And this is the title that appears on the actual page. So if I just leave it called dashboard page, that's going to be difficult to understand what that particular page is related to. So for that, I'm going to change that to floor 1 dashboard. And we know it's a page, so I'll just take the word page out. Okay. So if we go back now, that's now called floor 1 dashboard. And just to recap, to remind ourselves, we know we've got a floor 1 in our building 1. But let's just quickly go back to buildings. Okay. And let's click on the building there. And we've got a basement and a floor 2. So we want to duplicate our dashboards to suit those names. And then in building 2, we've got an office and a gallery. So let's quickly do that. Let's go back to our pages in our navigation within Reflow. I'm going to keep the copy one at the top, and I'm just going to come into this one and I'm going to duplicate it for the sake of the video, just quickly. And then I'm going to go into that and I'm going to change the name of that to floor 2. Okay. I'm not concerned about anything on the page at this stage. I'm purely building out my assets because we want to show how we can filter those down into some neat navigation items. So let's do the next one, which would be a duplication of this one. And then we want to call this one basement. Okay, and go back. Oh, missed a step. Let's go back in and duplicate this one. Back into the copy. Call this one office. I could duplicate straight from here actually. Let's do the duplicate of the office. And then this one will be called gallery. Here we go. Now you could, if you wanted to, add a prefix to some of these just in the title, like B1 or B2, but I'm just going to keep them as is because I think we know the buildings by now, just for the sake of this. So we've got our dashboards here now, or our pages. Now, respectfully, again, they're not tailored to any of the assets or associations to equipment on those pages. We just purely want the assets for now. So now we want to head over back to our Reflow navigation, and then we want to actually click on navigation. So if we go into navigation, you can see some items in here now. Now these are subheadings, or headings, I would say. The global navigation items at the top here. So as you can see, you got home, alarms, schedules, buildings, etc. And we've got our link to our dashboard page from floor 1 there. Now, what you can do, as is great with Reflow, you can move these around to suit. You can move these around as you like. I can just put those back. Okay, so we've got dashboard page here. Now that was a direct link to the floor 1 dashboard page. Now, if we click on that, because I want to still use the item, rather than it being a linked to a direct page, what we can do, we can change that to a drop-down menu. There are a number of options there, so feel free to experiment on your own, but I want to change this to a drop-down menu. Okay. Now, if I go to drop-down menu items underneath here, if I click on that, I can add an item. Okay. Now, if I go to item 1, which is automatically populated, if I click on this, we won't give it a name for a second. We just want to click in here, and the link, there is no link. So if we click on what pages we want in here, so I'm going to click our dashboard pages. So we've got floor 1 dashboard. Okay, that's our item 1. I'm going to add another one and do the same. So we click on the item. So I think you get the idea that this is how you can customize a drop-down menu for your pages into sections and groups. So I'm just going to add them all in now. Okay. We've got floor 2 there. Let's get the other one, the basement. Okay, got the basement one. And let's then add in the office. And add one more. Oh, workbench is prompting me. Let's go back to that. Okay, so let's go back to here and add the gallery. Okay, so your items are just generic names of item 1, item 2, etc. So you can change these to suit. So quickly do those, just good housekeeping. Okay, so those are the names that show up in the menu. But you might think, well, okay, that works, but it doesn't tell you where they're assigned to. So they're just dashboard pages. But what you can do is you can add a divider in. And we'll call the divider building 1. Okay. And let's just scroll up a second. And then what we can do, if we display the label, okay, that will populate in the pull down menu. And we want to move this up to the top. And now we've got a slightly, not clickable, as you can see here, but it's given a little subheading to list those out. We're going to add another divider now. All right. And then we'll call this one building 2. And then we're going to add that one above our pages there. All right. So we come back out quite quickly now. We've got a global dashboard page menu that will take us to those dashboard pages. We come back out now. Again, I'm going to keep everything default, have a play around these to suit. And we just want to change the title of this because it's not a single dashboard page now. I could call it dashboard pages, but I'm going to call it dashboards, or perhaps building dashboards. There we go. We come back out now. We come back out now, you can see we've now got an additional global item at the top here. And when you click on it, quite quickly, you've built your navigation out. So again, assets first, allocation afterwards. If we click through onto these now, takes us straight back. And then we can go directly from the global navigation there. Okay. Now, just a little feature that's contained within the global navigation is your overflow limit. Now, what that does, you can minimize the amount of items that are across your bar across the top. So currently it's set to 6. If I was to reduce this to 5, okay, that removes the last one in the list and it kicks it out to a hamburger type on the side. You still get your original groups on the right hand side, but then you do have this option on the side then there. So when you start to populate your global items across multiple different pages that you've set up, you can increase or reduce your overflow limit. Okay. Now you can, if you want to, add the weather widget. So if the weather widget is working, kick that out. There we go. Brilliant. Got some weather information there. And if you want to, then aesthetically you can change some tints across the top just to segregate between your hero card and your nav up the top there. Okay, but I'm going to keep that. Clear that for now. There we go. There we go. Okay, so that covers global navigation, but what about sub-navigation? So if we go into sub-navigations between your buildings, so remember this is your building sub-navigation here, you might want to add a link to your dashboard pages across just your building. So you've got your global one up here. Now we have put it out to the hamburger menu, as we call it, on the right hand side by the hamburger button. We do have those listed here globally, okay, but perhaps we want to just add them in our sub navigation. So if we come into sub navigations within the main navigation menu and click on building one, okay, and it's a similar exercise. So we want to add a sub navigation item, okay, and we want to call it dashboards. And the type we want as a drop down menu. And again, it's now appeared here. There are no items in that currently. Okay. And we just add our drop down menu items as we did in the global one. So let's quickly do that one. I'm going to add a link. Got 2 links because I know. Oh, let's add another one. We'll just do it en masse quickly. We come into this one and we want basement first. Item 2. Pull down menu, there we go. Floor 1. And then item 3. Floor 2. There we go. And then we'll obviously name these as they are. Floor 1. Floor 2. No, you can see what I did there, made a mistake. Extra points for noticing. Floor 1. Floor 2. Okay, so now we've done a sub navigation for building 1 very, very quickly. We come back out now and it's there. So we can scroll through our building sub nav and we now have access to our dashboards on the side. And it doesn't have to be dashboards, it could be anything you want. You could build summary views. Anything that's going to complement your project, you can put on the sub navigation. So let's quickly do building 2 as well. Let's come back out. Go back to building 2. And we'll do the same for that one. So we now want to add a sub navigation item. We want to call that dashboards. We want it to be a drop down menu. Again, drop down menu items, add an item. We have office, add a link, call that one gallery, and then assign our hyperlinks to those. So if we come into pages, office dashboard, and back into pages within Reflow to gallery dashboard. And there we go. That is a quick intro to navigation and how you can set it up to complement your project. So let's go back to the landing page. So just to recap that little item, we've got global navigation here where you can build things out across the entire project or the entirety of your buildings. And then if you go to your buildings, you can create sub-navigation items there. Okay. So we're going to take a look at histories now. Now there's not a great deal to go through with histories. Because Reflow natively brings in that information, it's just a case of assigning some filters and tailoring it again to your project and how you want that to be displayed. Well, I'm going to take a little look into that just to demonstrate it, and we'll have a look. So within your Reflow sub-navigation, or in your Reflow navigation, click on Histories. Okay, now it will go into your station and pull everything in that lives within your project and bring it out as cards. Now remember, I'm using dummy data, so there's not going to be a lot of movement in terms of values because this is just static values at the moment. But as you can see, it's pulled in 48 histories. And one great thing about Reflow, which I do love, if you are using naming conventions within Niagara camel case and putting dots or underscores within your history to minimize the odd output to be more human readable, you don't have to take that into consideration when bringing it into Reflow, because Reflow removes those for you. What a great piece of thought out process there by Reflow. I do love that. So we now immediately have some human recognizable names. So what you can do, if you remember, when you go onto your landing page, you can add featured equipment and featured histories. Again, tailor it to how you wish to demonstrate that. So there's a big plus down here that you can add featured histories. So if we click on that, we might be interested in a number of histories that we want to perhaps keep an eye on. If for any reasons you want to monitor the building under certain conditions, you can apply them there. I'm not going to go into great detail of those. I think the power of Reflow is very self-explanatory here. But again, if you feel that perhaps we could touch on it in another video, please leave some comments down in the comments below and we can cover that. But I'm just going to quickly show you the areas and how those look. And again, we can look at that perhaps at another time. Just one thing to consider, whilst Reflow does bring everything in natively and you can view it, so everything is available and you can build your charts as you wish. As you can see now, I've got a featured card there, but I'm going to just quickly remove that. Delete that featured history. You can assign your histories to your buildings just for greater or more improved user-friendly filtering options. Now, where you can do that is you would do that at the building level. Okay, so again, come into histories, have a play around with those. Again, it's very drag and drop, Boolean based, on and off switches, have a play around with those. But let's go back to the building and I'll just show you where you can do that. So within your building, you come into your histories section within your building, and this is where you assign specific histories to your building. Now you come into here, you can then filter between the selected histories or selected groups if you have set up groups in the main global histories menu. But come to building histories here, and this is where you can assign them. You can go through all of your historic data and give them a building tag, and that way you're able to search through your building's historic data a little bit easier and segregate that data down for you. So again, that's only a very brief intro to histories. Let's take a look at alarms. So we come into the alarms navigation item in the Reflow menu, and you can see here that out of the box there is a default alarm console within Reflow, and you can add your various consoles here. If you click on the default alarm console, you're presented with your priority items and your total alarms for that. Now, this default alarm console actually lives on the home page. As you've probably seen at the start of every video, there is an alarm console here, or an alarm card for active alarms of that alarm console. So if we click on that, again, it's going to link you into that deeper level to see what's there. So we're currently in the settings of that default alarm console. Now, one thing to consider, if you are adding alarm cards to your pages and tailoring them to that specific page, you have to be careful, because if your site changes, you're going to have multiple pages with different tailored alarm cards for that specific page. So the great thing about alarm consoles within Reflow, set them up as your global alarm consoles and add those to the cards. The reason being is that it's a one-to-many sort of relationship. You make those changes at the parent level, and then that will send that out to all of your pages, rather than tailoring individual cards per page. I'll demonstrate a little bit of that. So we've got a default alarm console here, okay, and in the alarm classes you can see it's gone into my station and pulled through my alarm classes that are already set up. So I've got one for basement, office, gallery, floor 1, floor 2, okay, and then obviously the default alarm class. So the default alarm class within Reflow is pulling in everything. So what I want to do, I want to add an alarm console for building 1 and building 2. And what I'm going to do here, if I come in here now, add a console, I'm going to call this one building 1. Okay, and I'm going to assign its name as building 1 for the page. Okay, and in the alarm classes, as you can see, it's offered up everything. Okay, now I'm going to turn off anything that's not related to building 1. And as we know through the project, gallery and office belong to building 2. So I've set that up now. That's as much as we need to do. That is my pretty much instantly my alarm console set up. Now you can go through other items for the refresh rate, how the alarms table looks, and the sources table, and you can turn off the columns, as you can see here, of how that's going to look. Again, jump in, have a play with that. I'm just going to keep that as is. So we've done an alarm console for building 1 now. Let's add another console. We're going to call this one building 2. Again, the page is going to be called building 2 as well. And we want to assign the alarm classes from our Niagara station to this particular Reflow alarm console. There we go. So we've got office and gallery in building 2, basement, floor 1, floor 2 assigned. Okay. So again, keep it all as is. So we've got 2 alarm consoles set up pretty quickly. So once you've done all your alarm filtering within Niagara, from a graphical display point of view within Reflow, you can set up those very quickly. Okay. So let's just quickly add an alarm page. Okay, we're going to want it in Reflow dashboard, and I'm going to call that alarm dashboard. Okay, I'm going to keep it as is, so it'll automatically assign the title, so we don't want to change it to anything bespoke. Okay, now I'm going to add a card. Now this is where I was saying earlier, make sure you build your consoles first rather than building individual tailored cards per page. Hopefully this will make sense for you now. So we've added a card. We want to add a alarm display. Okay, now currently that's active alarms, and that's assigned to the default alarm console. So that is going to show you everything. Because if you go back to your global alarm consoles page, if you remember, everything was switched on within that alarm console. Okay. Now out of the box, now we've added them, we can add building 1 or building 2. The bit that you need to be aware of that I was mentioning is if you come in, add a card, keep it as default alarm console, and then come in and add it by alarm class, okay, and then select your alarm classes and do it that way. So let's say, for example, we're setting up a building 1 alarm console, and we're only assigning those classes that we need for this particular card, okay? And we do that across the project. If your project changes, you're going to find that all of your cards are going to be out of sync. And you're going to have to go back to all the individual pages and change those alarm classes on each and every single card. It's okay for small projects if you just want a quick card to put on the page, but again, get in the habit of building your alarm console at the global level. That way, once you do that, try and close this. There we go. We want it by building. No, not by building, by all alarms. And the console we want is building 1. There we go, we're back. You can then set up priorities and icons. Again, all the colors, make it as you wish. And tailor it to your needs. But I just wanted to touch on that. That's the way you do that. But I'm not going to go into decorating a page. Feel free to jump in and have a look at that. But again, that's how you quickly set up your Reflow alarm consoles, and it will natively pull everything in from your alarm service in your station. So I don't want to add a navigation item for that. That's purely just a quick demo of the deployment of alarm cards. So let's go back to the landing page, okay, and let's just see an alarm come in. Let's go into my alarm service, and as you can see, I've added my alarm classes that you have seen in Reflow. These are now been allocated to a Niagara console. So these aren't directly related to Reflow alarm consoles, but these live within the Niagara environment. So we can allocate alarm classes to a Reflow alarm console and leverage that alarm data filtering that way. It'll still operate in the background. If you're in a workbench environment, you can acknowledge alarms as you require. That's just a quick view of that. So there's 2 alarms that we want to activate. We want to activate a desk's capacity alarm. So when we get into sort of 2/3 full of being at that capacity, we want to just send out an alarm to say, hey, we're 2/3 full on desk capacity. So that might be useful for a hot desk situation if the end user wants to monitor how many desks are available. And I'll just go into the strategy for that. And then I also have another alarm set up where it's connected to the fan coil unit schedule. So once the schedule and all the fan coil units are switched off and we're out of operating times, could just have an office hours schedule, but just for the sake of this, we've got it connected there. And if this turns off and yet there are still people occupied on the floor, that will send an alarm. So that's just in the background there, just to quickly show you how that's going to work. So let's go back into our Reflow web page and take a look at how that works. Okay, so we're in our floor 1 dashboard that we've already created. And as you can see, the desks are currently at 60% capacity with 8 occupied and 6 available. If we have a quick look on our floor plan, we can see how that looks. I'll head over to our desk state. And we hover over, you can see that desk 1, desk 2, etc., are all occupied. So anything in red is occupied, anything in green is available. That gives you a visual representation. But if we go back to the dashboard, we can see that based on our strategy in the back, within our station in the workbench environment, we're okay at the moment. We're okay. So if we go back now into our station, bit of a shortcut, let's add another desk to that situation. Look at set and occupied. We should see that now update, and there we go. So now we can see we are within sort of 2/3 full. That widget is now turned red and given that indication. So a great way of leveraging data visually within Reflow, and gives you a good example of where we're at currently. So let's go over into alarms now, and we should see that alarm has come in. There we are, so we can see that now. So a thing to note, now looking at the icons, you can see that it's slightly different from the one underneath. You can see this one's cleared, this one is currently active, and this is within the medium priority, and we've got a total alarm indication of how many active alarms we have. So what we want to do now, we want to change this back to a happier state and see that change again within Reflow. Give it a second or two to update. You can change the refresh rate on the consoles. I think it's currently set to default 15 seconds, so we'll just give that a second or two just to refresh itself. There we go, and that's now cleared. So you can see there now, and also we can, as you can, within any Niagara station within the console recipients, acknowledge alarms for that, and then that will update within Niagara. So it's got that bi-directional communication there, and it will stay in here within the console just for the record for the time being. You can go into the alarms console settings and change that how you see fit. Again, we can cover more on alarms in another video, but this is just a quick insight to that. So that was the one alarm for the capacity. So let's do an alarm activation for the fan coil unit. So if we head back to, for the fan coil unit schedule out of hours. So if we go back to schedules now. So in our schedules page, we're currently true. We want to change the fan coil unit schedule 1, which is allocated to floor 1. We come into this. Okay, and we are just after midday, and currently we are within time schedule, and it's a Friday, so we want to take this back to say 11:30. And in Reflow, just make sure that you click save in the corner there to commit your changes. Save that, and if we go back to our alarm consoles, because we still have desks that are occupied, come back to the alarms, and there we go. We can see that alarm has come in now. Floor 1 is still occupied while the schedule is out of hours. So if we come back to the schedule again and take that off, or put it back on, I should say. Let's go back to 3 PM, commit our changes, back to alarms, and there we go, that's cleared. So that was a brief introduction to alarms within Reflow. Not going to go too in depth on this. If there's interest in seeing more around alarm consoles and how we can set that up in dashboards within Reflow, please let us know in the comments below. So if we head back to the home page now, and I've also added, just to exit it in a nice way, when you come into the landing page within Reflow, I've just added some alarm cards there. So there we go. That concludes our video series on Reflow. If you do have any questions or queries, please do let us know down in the comments. And as usual, please do like and subscribe. And be sure to check out some of our other videos as well on our YouTube channel at OneSight TV. If you'd like more information and all the great work that NiagaraMods are doing, please do head to their website, NiagaraMods.com. And if you'd like to check out what we're doing and everything else that we're getting up to, please do head to our website, which is onesight.solutions. Thank you very much for watching this series, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much.